We talked about diabetes. We talked about what it actually means. We talked about how to get tested for it and why we need to get tested for it and the health problems that it causes. The basic issue being the microvascular, the smallest blood vessels. They are affected first. So if you haven't watched the previous episodes, please do so right now. I'm Dr. Satish Bhat and welcome to another episode of this series in which we urge you to ask these questions to yourself, to your doctor, to your friends, and to anyone who is interested in diabetology. Because it's right now a pandemic. Diabetes is a pandemic right now. And in India, which is already there, in what position? As the diabetic capital of the world. Now, this has become a cliche. I don't want to repeat that, but that's a fact. Just about every other person we meet seems to be diabetic or going to become one. Everyone seems to be at the risk of it. So then we talked about why we need to get tested. And so will this test or will the testing give me more information about the type of diabetes? Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Satish Bhat, consultant diabetologist and diabetic foot surgeon. So the types of diabetes, almost everyone has heard of type 1 and type 2. And then, yes, there is yet another type, which at least some of you would have heard, that is gestational diabetes mellitus. So gestational diabetes, or type 1, is the condition wherein the body is not able to produce insulin at all. So we started off saying that diabetes is not about blood sugar, it is about insulin. We need to look more at the problem of insulin production and performance rather than at the blood sugar alone. The blood sugar can be well controlled if you know what is happening with the insulin. So you need to know what is happening with the insulin. So the first problem, as I told you, is the problem of insulin production. So if your body isn't able to produce insulin at all, there is absolutely no production of insulin, then what happens? So then what does insulin do, by the way? Thought about it? All right. Coming up in the next episode would be how insulin works. But right now I'll give you a clue. Insulin is a gatekeeper. Simple. Insulin is a gatekeeper of what? Of the cell. So it stands at the door, decides who enters and who doesn't. It decides that only glucose enters the cell. Now, why does glucose need to enter the cell? Simple. To form energy. If the cell needs to form energy, if the cell needs to create energy, then glucose is a must. If I need to talk, I need glucose, I need energy. So glucose is equal to energy. And if this energy is to be produced, glucose has to enter the cell. And if glucose has to enter the cell, you need insulin. So no insulin, the glucose doesn't enter the cell. It just gets gathered up, piled up in the bloodstream. So you have water everywhere, not a drop to drink. You have loads of glucose roaming around in your bloodstream, but none of it enters the cell. You feel weak because there is no energy. Yeah. And then, because the bloodstream contains so much of glucose, your kidney will be working overnight, or it will be working at full steam to get rid of this excess glucose. So if the glucose goes out, so it starts passing glucose through the urine. But if the glucose goes out, so does water. So you feel thirsty and tired and dehydrated. So excess thirst And then the same thing with the cells. The cells don't get glucose. The cells are starving. They are hungry. And so are you. So you have excess thirst, excess hunger, and feeling of tiredness, and all because you're losing a lot of water, and that is excessive urination. So excess thirst, excess urination, and excess hunger, but feeling tired and run down all the time. Classical symptoms. But do they happen to everyone? No. So please don't wait for the symptoms. However, if you have any of these symptoms, then you must get tested for diabetes right now. And if you suddenly develop these, then you could have what we say is type 1 diabetes, which is more common in kids. We'll not be talking about all that right now because it's a big topic. We will dedicate some episodes to it later on. Okay, so that's type 1. Type 2 is the commonest one, which everyone wants to know more about. We will talk about it. The maximum diabetics would be type 2. And then there is gestational diabetes. So gestational diabetes is that diabetes which is first diagnosed in pregnancy, or there is a pregnant woman who turns diabetic, or a diabetic who has been who suddenly becomes pregnant. So a diabetic, pre-existing diabetic, and then she becomes pregnant. That's also gestation diabetes. So diabetes in pregnancy, roughly, is gestational diabetes. Now, are these the only 3 types? No. There are a number of other types of diabetes. The commonest or the very important group being what is called maturity onset diabetes of young, MODY. There are various subtypes of MODY. I'll not go into that. But that's called a monogenic diabetes. Means there is a sudden change in just one gene in your body, and that wreaks havoc. That causes this diabetes. So what about the other diabetes? Aren't they monogenic? No, they are polygenic. So various genes. We'll not go into the genetics again. It might be boring to some of you. But suffice it to say that there are various types of diabetes, and we need to, when testing, we need to figure out what type of diabetes we are dealing with. That is the importance of testing. Yet another importance. Yeah. If you are keen to know more about any specific type of diabetes, please do comment in the box. And of course, don't forget to smash the like button and the notification icon and subscribe and share. Thanks for watching.